All right, well, buddy, should we? I know.
Would
we're
you
like
like me to play the theme
but
song?
I would like you to play the theme song, please.
All right. I'm
Gotta get in the right mindset for
I hear
today's
you.
episode. This episode, Jared, is going to be very traumatic. We are talking about standardized tests. I'm sure we'll both have some flashbacks from those good old days. You were lucky enough to avoid the public schools, so did you have to do MEEPs in high school?
I don't remember if it was MEEP specifically, but I certainly had to do some sort of Michigan standardized test. But I didn't avoid the public high school because every time I had to take, not every time, a lot of times I took these tests were at some sort of public high school. So I'm just happy that your background wasn't like Losser High School gym or something, or just like a random classroom at Brother Rice. No, not Brother Rice. Maybe I did do one there too, but that's not a public school. Anyway, do you want the song, sir?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
We'll get to this good actual standardized test talk later.
That's right. So stay tuned and grab your bagels and your orange juice.
Grab bagels. Oh, okay.
That's what they used to give us in school when we had the tests.
Oh, really?
Those days. Yeah.
I never got that.
In the morning, we'd always get a bagel with some cream cheese and a little thing of OJ.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. It would be like a Nutri-Grain bar and a bag of pretzels that was supposed to sustain me for 6 hours.
Right. It feels like just like discarded airplane snacks. All right. Well, hello and welcome to the Untranslatable podcast. We are here today to talk about some of the issues and problems of standardized testing and also grades as well. We'll probably focus more on testing, but I think it's important to discuss grades a little bit as well. We've definitely been having some talks at my work about grades and also about testing as well. And one thing I realized after having a conversation with a lot of my students in China is it just dawned on me how many standardized tests they have as well. So I thought it would be a fun episode today to talk about, why do we even do standardized tests still? What's the point? And what are some potential alternatives as well to standardized tests? Because I do work in the field of education, so I feel like I would not be doing my full duty to you, dear listeners, at the Untranslatable podcast by not trying to give some suggestions as well. So without further ado, I'm looking forward to today's episode and also being joined by my partner in crime and my good buddy. What's going on, Jared? What's up, player?
How's it going? What's up, players? Chad, I hope you're enjoying your white boy summer. I guess it's not summer yet. Getting prepared for your white boy summer. Maybe some new fits. Maybe updating the hairstyle. I don't know if you already have. I don't mean to be rude. Are you familiar? By the way, are you familiar with white boy summer?
I was going to ask you. Yeah, what the hell is white boy summer? What is that? Wait. Can I tell you what I think it might be? What comes to my mind as a
let me just start by saying,
boy.
Someone has originated it. So guess also who would originate the idea of white boy summer.
White boy summer. I feel like I could see somebody like Post Malone making this a thing.
I think the person that did originate the idea of white boy summer would like that. He would appreciate that. It was Chet Hanks. Are you familiar with Chet Hanks? Chet Hanks is Tom Hanks' son. He's popular on social media.
I've seen him. He's been on a couple shows too, hasn't he?
He's acted a little bit. He's popular on social media for his he does a patois Jamaican accent that some people find amusing, some people might find offensive because, as I said, he's Tom Hanks' son. But he also has originated the idea of the white boy summer, and he's saying, not some Trump shit is what he said. Here, I can just play it for you. Why not? Who cares? It's right here.
Hey, guys. Look, I just wanted to tap in really quick. I just got this feeling, man, that this summer is, it's about to be a white boy summer. Take it how you want. I'm not talking about, like, Trump, NASCAR type white. I'm talking about,
That's what I was thinking.
Me, John B., Jack Harlow type white boy summer, you know what I mean?
Do you know who John B and Jack Harlow are?
I don't know who either of those people
John
are.
B is an R&B singer. Jack Jack Harlow is like a rapper.
Are they both white?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of
Anyway,
them.
it's so funny. You know nothing about what's happening on social media.
And in my own culture, Jared, I'm so out of touch in my own culture.
yeah. How you should be up to date on the white boy summer. You didn't get an email about it?
Do I lose my white card? Is that what happens now?
Yeah, I might have to get rid of this drop.
up, player?
You really, you're not even you haven't even earned it.
That's so weird. The white boy summer. When I hear that, what I think of some Trump shit. I think of I think
NASCAR.
of, and I'll be honest, Jared, if I had a pickup truck, I would 100% do this. I think of putting a tarp in your damn truck bed, filling that with water from your garden hose.
Does that actually
and
work?
chilling with your homies. Yeah, of course it works.
Okay.
Of course it works.
All right.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, none of that. I think Post Malone fits into Chet Hanks' idea of a white boy summer.
Which is just what? White boys doing black shit?
You know, maybe a year or two ago, Meg the Stallion had Hot Girl Summer.
So is it just when these
Chet
people
Hanks
get
is
really
saying-
popular?
It's white boy. It's the summer of the white boys. You know.
Okay.
It used to be the summer of the hot girls. Now it's the summer of the white boys. You know, it's so funny. He actually put out some. Here, let me see if I can find it. He put out some merch that people kind of have some problems with.
I'm sure it said probably white boy summer and people are pissed.
But they're not pissed that it says white boy summer.
Or are they
They're
pissed about?
Here, let me send you the link. He has a whole website for his white boy summer.
Jeez.
White boy summer. I did not expect to talk this much about it. I literally just went to say, I hope you're enjoying your white boy summer and move on. Oops, sorry, that was my scent sound.
Do I need to get this wrapped on the
WBS.
back of my van?
Careful. I don't know. Depends on where you plan on going.
That's a good point. They have like short shorts for the ladies, women's biker shorts that say white boy summer on them.
So can you imagine what the uproar would be about the white boy summer gear?
Well, isn't that font kind of
Yes.
what's the right how would I describe that font?
That's the
Jared?
racist font. That's the white supremacist font. Is that
Yeah.
that's how you're
Yep.
Yeah, so everyone's saying like you chose the go-to like cuz that's like the 3%er font or like the Proud Boy font. It's like you chose the racist font.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, so
That's
just
just
making
so
sure
funny.
you're
Why
getting prepared for
just
white boy
why?
summer. This could be your summer, you got the van. You're
That's true.
outfitting it. What sort of
Ooh.
outfitments are you putting in
Yes.
this van to
Let
prepare
me-
you for a white boy summer?
Let's talk about it a little bit. I told you I didn't have that many updates, but I guess I have more than I realized. So finally got the floor in the van. That was a whole ass ordeal though, Jared. So
what do you mean by the floor? Because if I'm not mistaken, most vans come with a floor.
Yes, unless you buy one that's so rusted out that there is no floor. So what I needed to do was when I tossed the bed in the back of the van, because of the little drop where your feet would go if you sat where you usually sit in the back, it's not level. So
You need a flat surface.
Exactly. So what ended up happening was earlier this week, I went to first try to go to Lowe's and got like this very high pressure like laminate wood board. It's a little bit different than plywood. It's a little bit smoother. It's 3 1/4 inches thick, so it's fairly thick wood, and it's not light. I mean, it's definitely a little bit cumbersome to move around. But anyways, so this was the ordeal though, Jared. So and now I know I need to call places first before I go. Because what happened was I went into Lowe's, went into the lumber section, found the 4x8 piece of wood I needed, struggled to load it up on a cart. Then thankfully a dude at Lowe's, a guy that worked there, saw me struggling and he was like, "Here, let me help you." So he helped me. And I
I'm
go,
sorry, but
"So
that seems like it would be hilarious to watch.
I mean, well, I felt like an idiot, so I'm sure it was hilarious to watch. But anyways, so then I asked the guy, I said, "Where can I go to get this cut?" Because most hardware stores will have a saw, and you can just get it cut to the dimensions you need. And so he goes, "Oh, no cutting today. The saw's broken." And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna need your help to unload this and put this back then.
That's like when you go to McDonald's and the ice cream machine is broken. It's always broken. How
And so-
convenient.
Right. And so then I'm like, all right, I'll see what other, hardware stores are nearby that, I can call and hopefully they'll have the wooden stock and they'll cut it. So I called the other Lowe's that was in Ypsilanti. So it was about a 25-minute drive from where I was. Called them. They had the wooden stock. And then thank God I asked them first. I said, do you have someone in to cut the wood? And they're like, no, sorry, our saw is actually broken. So 2 Lowe's on the same day had a busted saw. So then I'm like, all right, well, let's try Home Depot. So I called Home Depot. And
you hear that, Lowe's?
What?
Sorry, go. I said, you hear that, Lowe's?
That's right, Lowe's. Lost my business. So I called Home Depot, and the first one, I told the guy the specific measurements. It was 75 inches long, 46 inches wide. And he said, yeah, we can't cut that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, we can only cut 48 inches. And I'm like, well, that literally will not fit in my van. Like, it's going to be too wide, and it won't be able to fit on the floor.
They can only cut very specific sizes?
Apparently, I guess they must have had an older saw, and certain saws they have certain dimensions.
Have, like,
I guess
preset spots you can put it.
I guess they need to go by increments of 12 inches. Okay. So that's why they had to go with 48, which I'm like, okay, but why can't you just cut an inch off of each side after you cut it at 48? But anyways, I wasn't going to argue with the guy, so finally I called another Home Depot in Brighton. And I called them, and then finally they're like, "Yeah, we have it in stock." And I told them the dimensions, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can cut that, no problem." So I ended up driving half an hour to Brighton. Finally got it, and the nice thing is, Jared, I have enough extra wood from the floor that I'm going to use that to make a table.
So did you just put it? You bought it, and then you just wheeled it out to your car and just laid it down on the floor.
Yep.
There.
Yep. And then
is there any way you have to lock it down?
So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to try this first, is I need to put legs on it just because there is that area from where the kind of foot space drops, right?
Damn.
Where I have to put legs, which is fine. I have 2x4s. They've been measured, cut, all good to go. I just need to, attach them, screw them on. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to put some carpet liner underneath the wood so it just won't slide as much. And I'm hoping that with the legs being down like that and then with stuff on top of it, it just won't move.
Yeah. You could also stuff like rubber or some sort of squishy material in if it does slide around in the side of it.
Well, I was driving it around. When I was driving it around, I hit the brakes hard a couple times just to see, and it didn't move one bit. And that was when I didn't have anything on it either. But I'm hoping just having those legs on the ground will help stabilize it a bit. Plus having the carpet, material underneath it, that's kind of sticky. That should help it as well. And then we'll have to see. But anyways, you ask though, how I'm gonna
prepare for your white boy summer.
Yeah, exactly. I hate that term, by the way. That's so ridiculous. But anyways, Jared, you asked, so let me answer. So for my white boy summer, I am what I'm going to do is I'm ordering a tapestry to put on the ceiling. I'm going to cut it in thirds because I still want the lights. I do have a center light and a light towards the where the back doors are. So I want to have those lights stay visible. And then after I attach the tapestry, I'm going to attach that to the ceiling just with double-sided tape. I initially thought of maybe stapling it or even using some thumbtacks. But I figured, what, a tapestry is not heavy. Double-sided tape will work fine. And then what I'm going to do as well is then I've bought 6 LED rechargeable, USB rechargeable lights that you can, they come with a remote and you can just push the top of the light to turn it on. So I'm going to put those in the back. I already have my shower curtain divider up. So, when I'm sleeping, you can't see from out front. I do need to still get my window covers, so that's on the list. But anyways,
this is going to be a white boy summer, all right.
That's right.
Coming along. And your spring break is what, 2 weeks away, isn't it?
No, spring break has come and gone. Spring break is long gone.
Oh, you passed it?
Yeah.
You didn't go to Traverse City?
I didn't have everything ready in time.
When was spring break? What the hell?
In March.
Oh, yeah. What? I can't. You just thought you'd slide by. We'd never mention that you didn't go to Traverse City.
Well, that's because the van wasn't ready. I'm still going to go.
Okay.
And I have 2 wineries that I'm going to go check out while I'm there, and at least, probably not check out, but just get a couple bottles of wine because
You're not going to go on a tour. You've never been on a wine tour before.
I have. Actually, that was what I was doing the last time I was in Traverse
can't believe
City.
I thought we were all. I thought this was all in preparation for spring break. I didn't even realize spring
That was
break
my
had come and
hope,
gone.
but I just didn't get everything in time.
Okay.
Plus, I didn't
All
get the
right.
van serviced in time and all that good stuff. But
Listen, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. That's all I'm saying.
well, Jared, I'm just saving it for my white boy summer. That's the plan.
True. You
So-
don't want to blow your load too early. Bad choice of words.
I was about to say, whoa there, Jared. This is a kid-friendly podcast, or a family-friendly podcast, I should say. But anyways, the tapestry though, Jared, it's pretty cool. It's actually
Yeah,
this.
it's not kid friendly. Don't say that.
Right? No, it's family-friendly. But the tapestry is pretty sweet, dude. It looks like if you were laying down in the woods and looking up, and you see the moon and then a bunch of trees. And so I think that'll look cool up there with the LED lights. And then, the other thing I have set up, I have a magnetic towel rack, so I can like hang stuff. I have a couple other magnetic hangers in different spots, so like once I start traveling, I can easily put like my toiletry bag up there, towels,
man.
shirts, what have you.
My curiosity is because I see how this is going. What is considered finished? I feel like you could be outfitting this thing for the next 6 years and be like, I'm not done yet.
I will
haven't
tell you exactly
gone
what
anywhere.
finished is. Finished. Here was kind of my checklist, Jared. One of the first things, which probably isn't the most practical, but it's very important, is getting a working radio. Because when I bought the
say that's
vehicle, there
pretty
wasn't
practical.
a radio. So got the radio, so we can check that off the list. Get the floor level. That's kind of step number 2. That's almost done. Already have put together the bed frame, made sure the bed fits in there and everything like that. Put up the shower curtain. So really, the last steps are getting the window covers, especially like with Reflectix. So if it's really hot out, I can put that up and it will reflect the heat away and keep it cool inside. And then in the winter, I can flip those window covers inside out. And then it will have
Genius.
and then it will bring the heat in and keep the heat inside the van. And then after that, I'm good to go. I'm
gonna
ready.
say you're just about done. It seems like the final stuff is pretty easy. Just
Right. And then the
buying a
rest
few
of it is
things.
just figuring out the other nice amenities I would like. Like I have a
Sure.
cooler I ordered that is just the perfect size where it will fit right next to my bed so I can grab some snacks while I'm too lazy to get up out of bed. That's always a plus. Also, though, Jared, that cooler will double as a seat if you want to, sit. So that will work. And that cooler, it was hard to find a cooler that would work because this is not a standard cargo van. It's not as big or as long or as wide as a cargo van. So what that means is most coolers tend to be wider than they are tall. Right? So it was really hard to find the right cooler. I wanted one that was honestly taller than it was wide, and I knew the exact dimensions I needed. So finally, I found an Igloo cooler. Nothing
Shout out.
fancy, right? Nothing fancy. It was $25, but I'm trying to build this thing cheap, and I'm trying to make this kind of a quote-unquote no-build conversion, which basically means, I'm not mounting anything. I mean, yes,
That's
I'm
what they
screwing
call
some
it
legs in the
in
woods.
the industry.
Yeah, that's what they call it, is a no build, where, I'm not building cabinets. I'm not, doing anything. I'm not a super handy builder type person. So I figure why not try to just do this without, having to build a bunch of wood stuff. And but I'm excited. It's coming along. And hopefully in a couple weeks, Jared, I'll be off to Traverse City.
Okay.
Starting
I'm
to enjoy my
excited.
white boy summer.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Who are those artists again?
What's up,
So I can
player?
play them while I'm driving down the road.
John B. and Jack Harlow.
I've never heard of either of them. I'll have to check them out.
They're pretty different. I think John B. is like he's like from like the early 2000s, 90s mostly, and Jack Harlow is like a current kid.
Can we give Post
He had some
Malone an
TikToks
honorary
on-
mention as well?
I think
for,
Post
for that
Malone
category.
I think Post Malone falls into that Jack Harlow category.
I would say so.
So I think that you don't even know who Jack Harlow is, but I appreciate your. That's
Well, you
very
explained
good.
who he
no,
was.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, no.
Sorry
So-
for listening to you, Jared.
So that's true. I usually don't listen, so I'm just not used to that sort of interaction. I'm actually surprised. They have this section where it's like if you search for Jack Harlow, oh no, Post Malone's on that list. So there you go.
There we go.
Also, Lil Skis. There's another white dude you can add to your white boy summer
Never
list.
Never heard of them, but okay.
I haven't either, but he looks like. Oh, jeez. I don't know. He looks
Speaking
like,
of Post Malone, though, Jared, by the way, we forgot to mention, a couple days ago, it was April 1st.
Oh, my
And I saw on Instagram, and at first I was excited. I saw this video. Post Malone Matthew McConaughey posted a video on YouTube a couple weeks ago of Post Malone doing a couple country songs. And it actually sounded pretty good. And then someone posted on Instagram, hey, have you heard Post Malone is teaming up with Dwight Yoakam, who's a really prominent like country bluegrass artist. He's teaming up with Dwight Yoakam's band, and they're going to record a country album. And honestly, that wouldn't really surprise me. Like, Post Malone likes country music. He's from Texas, or at least he grew up in Texas. But I read it, and then I kept reading the caption. It was like April Fool's, and I'm like, damn, that might have been a really cool album.
Yeah, that's not even like a good joke because it's like, oh, that sounds like a great collaboration.
Right, exactly.
I'm so sick of April Fools, dude. I am so sick of it. All of the, I mean, it's just all of the quote unquote jokes are so dumb, and I don't know. I mean, you heard about Volkswagen, right? They really screwed themselves.
No, what happened?
They put out a post
April Fool's tweet
leaked, but it was like a few days. It was like the 29th or 30th or something. It wasn't even on April 1st. Saying, it came, it leaked out, quote unquote, that they were changing their name to Volts, VOLTS wagon,
Volkswagen,
because they're to signal their electric future, exactly.
Right. That's
and,
hilarious.
Obviously, people freaked out, and no one knew if they were serious or lying or not because it wasn't April 1st, first of all.
Right.
and then so first it came out that they were lying. Then it came first everyone thought that it was just a bad joke. Then it came out that it was true, but then it found out that it was just a joke at the end of the day. But now, I think the SEC is investigating them because I think there's some rules around like making big announcements like this because it affects the stock, the stock prices. But I don't know if anything will come of it. But it's definitely was like
that's so funny.
This is a bad joke. This is a bad joke.
Speaking of bad jokes, and this wasn't even a joke, Jared. This is kind of a funny, quick little story. I'll tell you and our listeners. So on it wasn't April Fool's for us. It was March 31st. I got a text message from one of my students in China who is a student monitor. And for those of you who don't know, basically a student monitor is the one who is they're kind of like the teacher's assistant of the class, I guess, per se. Like they're the ones who are kind of the top of the class. When I say top of the class, I don't mean like grade-wise, but they're just like they're kind of the responsible person if, like, for example, if I need attendance, I can ask the student monitors. If I need them to relay a message, they will. I'm sure they do other stuff, that their Chinese teachers probably have them do that I have no idea about. But anyways, my point here is I got a message from my student saying, hey, we're actually getting our Sinovac COVID vaccines the same time as class. Can we join the other class on Friday? And so I told that student, sure, no problem. Generally I would prefer if they didn't do that because then there are so many students in the live lesson that it's hard to talk to everybody. But still, you have to do, got to do what you got to do. So anyways, because I thought class was canceled, I'm sitting there. I had dinner a little bit later than usual. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I'll at least send my students a message just, saying, just so you know, if your student monitor didn't tell you, class is canceled. I'll see you all on Friday. So I send this message, and then I leave my phone upstairs because I've been trying to just use my phone less and less. And then I come back to my phone, Jared, with 30 missed messages on my phone.
Good.
And I'm like, and the funny thing is on WeChat, and we've talked about this on our WeChat episode, so check that one out if you don't know what I'm about to say here. But WeChat has stickers, which are kind of like, it's kind of like a picture or a meme or a GIF. Or a GIF if you're a weirdo and that's how you say it. But basically, you can like send pictures and images, right? And the funny thing is I got all these random stickers on there, like what, huh? Like a confused bunny rabbit was one of the stickers I saw. And then my students were like, "Oh, very funny, teacher, like happy April Fools." And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Class is canceled. And then it turns out, Jared, that there was a communication breakdown, and only half of my class was getting their COVID vaccines. So it was this whole entire hot mess which was kind of funny because my students thought it was a joke, an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't.
They celebrate or celebrate. I don't even know what to call it. They partake in April Fools in China.
No, but I think they've heard about it before.
So they thought you, the American,
Right.
were putting one on them.
Right. Yeah. Pulling a little prank on them. But yeah,
See,
so
this
that
is
was
what's
just
wrong
so
with
funny.
April Fools. People don't even know what to believe anymore. Nothing's
Right.
real anymore.
Right. I will tell you though, dude, I felt so kind of frustrated and embarrassed because I was like, well, if I would have known half the class still could attend class, I wouldn't have canceled. I would have but what happened was it was actually the class monitor for one of the classes. I mean, he just kind of confused the terms. So anyways, it was just kind of funny how that was not an April Fool's joke, but my students thought it was. I thought that was great.
And I think that proves my point. April Fool's is useless and not good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people definitely don't like pranks.
All right, dude.
So
Do you
yeah,
want to get to some untranslatables?
let's do it. I think you know what time it is.
Yeah.
It is that time.
The owl hoots for untranslatables.
That's right. And untranslatables are idioms, proverbs, sayings, axioms that don't always translate on a one-to-one basis into English, but we are here to decipher them and figure them out for you. And I will get us started today, Jared, with a Spanish untranslatable, tener mala leche.
Something about milk.
Mal, you know what mal is in Spanish, don't
Bad.
you?
Something about tasting bad milk or something.
Having bad milk, yes, tener.
Oh, tener. I see. I think you said with an M for some reason.
Sorry. Tener mala leche, to have bad milk.
Yeah, I could have gotten that one if I really put my mind to it. To have bad milk. Is that like to have bad opinions?
Yeah, kind of. You're getting there.
Wrong opinions?
What might you call someone that has really, really bad opinions? And maybe they even act on some of those bad opinions or ideas.
Toxic. Problematic.
Yeah. Okay, and what
Dangerous.
do we have an untranslatable in English, Jared, we might say? We would say that person is a bad
egg.
Bad egg, or I was looking for bad apple, but bad egg also works.
They say bad apple? I guess they do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so to have bad milk is just to be bad?
To be a bad apple.
I see. Okay. That person has some bad milk.
Yep.
I gotcha. My first untranslatable is Hausa, which is spoken in Nigeria. By the way, or Chad, Ghana, Cameroon. Did you hear about this politician? So they just, or not politician, a news commentator person. They just legalized recreational weed in New York, and this politician was talking about, this news guy on, I think, Newsmax was talking about how bad it was. He said he smoked weed once when he was a lot younger as a kid or something, and he woke up 3 days later in Nairobi.
What? Where did that guy get that stuff? Dear Lord.
It's like, I don't know. Either you had some great stuff, or that probably wasn't weed. That was your problem.
Right.
Anyway, I just thought that was funny.
That's hilarious.
It's like, I love the self-owns too.
That's a story to tell somebody. Hey, yeah, so I smoked this and woke up 3 days later in a different country.
Like, first of all, I need more information. Did you have your passport? Like, are those people still your friends? Where were they? How did you get back? Like, that's.
Did you still have all your stuff on you?
Yeah. Did you just wake up like? Where did you wake up? Also,
were your shoes still on? Did you having drawings on your face?
Yeah, wake up in Nairobi with a dick on your forehead. So my first Hausa untranslatable is Ba domin tswao akan ga wataba. You don't see the moon because of your height.
So it's when your it's like when your beliefs or your perceptions limit you in doing something, or they hold you back, is my guess.
I would say you're close, and that makes sense, but not quite. It's
not close enough to have that white boy summer just yet, am I?
That's actually very
See
right.
what you did, Jared?
You have to be able to be right and just keep moving like you're be wrong. Excuse me, and keep moving like you're right for the proper white boy summer. Sorry, that was kind of a tongue twister. You just have to have that confidence. Like, no, I'm right. F it. This is white boy summer. What I say goes. It's not. I'll just give it to you. It's not by your power. It's out
of your control.
You haven't done anything especially special. Anyone can do what you did.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see. All right.
So you don't see the moon because of your height, meaning it's like you're not taller than us. Like you're not able to see the moon because you're taller than us, which makes you somehow better than us.
Right.
We can all see it. You're not doing anything special by seeing it. Essentially, is what they're saying.
That makes sense. This one, Jared, is an interesting one. It's also Spanish. Ser la media naranja.
Can you say that? Hold on, say that again.
Ser la media naranja.
Media, is that like media?
I think it means half or middle.
Oh, geez. All right, just give me the.
To be the half orange.
To be the half orange. To be the half orange. To be like the oddball
I would say,
in the
Jared,
group?
if we're being no. I would say it's kind of the opposite of that. I would say out of the two of us, Jared, you are definitely the half orange of the podcast. I'm giving you a compliment here.
Yeah, that's why I'm so confused. I don't know the leader.
Or people who are still in relationships might say this about their significant other. This person is my half orange. I don't know if you can say it like that.
They're like keeping it going.
No, what do we say? People will say, "I married my
other half."
Close. You're getting really warm.
Significant other.
You're getting further away.
My better half. I see.
There we go. Exactly. This means to be the better half.
The half, but that doesn't even make any sense.
I don't understand. Half orange.
But there's two halves that are equal. Well, I don't.
But see, maybe if you're the half orange, the other half has already been eaten.
I see.
That's the half that remains.
The remaining half is the better half.
You're saving the best for later. I don't know. I have no idea where the origin of that one comes from.
My final untranslatable is Sicilian, and it's acqua in boca. You should probably know what that means.
Water in the mouth?
Mm-hmm.
Water in the mouth. And this is Sicilian, you said?
Yeah. Hey, keep the water in your mouth.
Oh, keep quiet.
Yeah, there you go.
Keep quiet. Don't be telling secrets.
Mm-hmm. If you open your mouth, the water comes out.
Okay.
Keep the water in your mouth by keeping your mouth closed.
That makes sense.
Capiche?
Okay. Capiche? Okay, let me see if I can find. I had a.
We are 40 minutes in. We could just move on. You don't have to find another one.
All right, let's just move on then, Jared, and let's talk about standardized testing and all of the great and terrible things that go along with it. So. Standardized testing is, at least in the U.S., a lot of times we use standardized testing in, I know, middle schools, high schools. Definitely a lot of colleges still require it as, either an ACT or an SAT as kind of an entrance requirement. In graduate school, we also had the GRE, which if you decide to do an MBA at some point, Jared, you'll probably have to take that, which is not fun.
But there's also like the LSAT.
Yep.
What's the
and
doctor
that's for
one?
Law.
There's some doctor one too.
Right. Is that the MCATs?
Yeah. I think that's it. There's a whole bunch. I'm sure
all
there's
the
other
acronyms.
ones
All of the acronyms, basically.
And there's supposed to be a way to equally assess the sort of the, I don't want to say intelligence, but your aptitude, I should say, in various arenas, and it's considered to be like this is the same test that everyone has to take. So we're grading everyone on the same scale, and we're able to accurately compare everyone equally because obviously schools vary and stuff like that.
Right. And the crazy thing, and I will say this, now standardized tests to some degree, it does make sense, right? I mean, in the U.S., we are a gigantic country. We have a pretty large population. I can tell you for sure in China, these standardized tests in a lot of ways do make sense because it's a way to, assess a lot of people with similar parameters, or well, technically it should be, the quote unquote same parameters, right? However, the thing that standardized tests really lack is I truly believe that standardized tests are it's more of a test of your skills as a test taker and not actually the knowledge that you have.
So the process, for sure, because the process to take the test, at least in most of my experience, has been, this is a specific, either it's done at the school that I go to and it's a specific day where we don't have any class that day and we spend most of the school day, not the whole school day, most of the school day taking this test, or I sign up to take the test just on my own, and then I go to some local public school or something like that,
or test taking center like I've got behind me.
Is that what that is? I don't think I've ever been to a test-taking center. I think every time I've done it, because mine's just been like, ACT, SAT stuff, or like the Michigan ones. I feel like it's either been at my school or I've gone to some local public school. And you either sit in like the cafeteria or the gym or just some random classroom or something like that. And then you sit there for, I don't know, what is it, 4 hours,
3,
5 hours?
4 hours, 5, depending on the test, yeah.
Yeah, and you take this test.
I think the LSATs, it's like a 2-day thing, if I remember correctly.
Probably. I mean, I'd imagine the LSAT's probably longer and more difficult than the SAT and ACT.
Oh, for sure.
And so yeah, you show up and you have to sit in the same spot unless you have like a specific bathroom break. And really, as you said, it really does highlight good and bad test takers. I'll tell you this: I have the attention span of a damn goldfish. I really struggle. I struggle to read like large menus because I can't start and I just hop around to like I'll start in the dessert, read 2 desserts, hop over to the appetizers, read an appetizer, read a main. Like that's how I will read those things. And I just have terrible attention. Like I always got 3 different forms of media going at once. I'm watching TV while I'm playing a video game. Anyway, so the idea of just sitting down for hours on end and staring and reading these questions from this giant booklet and just going in order
filling in bubbles,
one by
filling in bubbles
is my personal hell. Like it is literally my personal hell. Just sitting there. Oh my God. I feel like I don't want to call myself a bad test taker because I don't even know if it's that. I feel like it's just my struggle to stay focused for hours on end, Right. I don't feel like I'm a bad test taker if it's like a sort of a normal like classroom test, But I feel like specifically I just like I don't have my attention span starts to fail me probably about after an hour. And that's just when you're really just getting started on these standardized tests.
Right.
Do you think you're a good or bad test taker?
Oh, I'm a terrible test taker. Terrible.
As a teacher, you certainly agree with the idea of bad and good test takers?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I have some friends
I don't know if it was a myth or if teachers rolled their eyes at that or something.
No, it's not a myth. I mean, think about it this way, Jared. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and some people are just going to be better either thinkers or strategizers when it comes to taking a test. Other people, now it depends on the type of test I'm taking though as well, because I tend to do pretty well on reading type of tests and stuff like that. Essay, no problem, but once you make me do some science or some math, starts to go out the window a little bit.
How do you get it? How do you feel about specifically when we're talking about the standardized test, the process of the filling out the bubbles? Where does that fall into?
Oh, it's terrible. It's just so monotonous and mind-numbing, and also too, I remember one year when I was in either middle school, I think I was in middle school, I accidentally skipped a question, meaning all my bubbles were 1 off.
Oh no!
So I was like frantically trying to erase it, before.
See, and that people would, like, if you didn't have a time to fix it, people would look at it and be like, "This guy's an idiot."
Yep.
He got everything wrong or most things wrong after this. It's just, well, you know, it'd be hilarious if he did very well on the test.
Right. Got them all right. That would be
Better
hilarious.
than if you actually just filled everything out properly.
Or if you just go circle C the whole way down just to
That's
get it
what they
done
say.
really quick.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
I think that the standardized testing company is in bed with Big Pencil. What the hell
interesting.
is up with the specific
Number 2
need
pencil,
for the number 2?
Ticonderogas, my man.
Yeah, big test and big pencil, aka Ticonderoga, are definitely in bed together. What
Be
is
careful,
wrong?
Jared. They're going to come after us after this episode.
We're gonna get some legal
Cease and
letter.
desist
You
from
got to take that
Ticonderoga.
podcast down for whatever you call it when you talk shit about a company. Or
Cease
a
and
person.
desist.
No, but there's specifically for like talking shit about someone. There's a word for that.
Oh, defamation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're but like what's wrong with the mechanical pencil? Why is it specifically that we need one of those old school wooden pencils to properly fill it out?
So
Like-
you can have that feeling of trauma and anxiety when you take your test, Jared.
I would see someone using a mechanical pencil and be like, "This person's throwing away their damn future because of
That's
the
right.
love of a pencil."
All down the toilet. Exactly. I will say though, Jared, jokes aside, you do bring up a really important point though. That the majority of these standardized tests are actually run by private companies, for-profit companies. And I am a firm believer that there are a few fields where we should not really have for-profit companies, and one of those fields is education. The other field is medicine. Now, some people might call me a crazy socialist or a commie
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever
You
because
liberal.
of that.
What do you know?
But you know, I mean,
Just
if you
enjoy
look
your
at
white
Europe,
boys.
right? Just
Shut up.
exactly. Just listen to your Post Malone, drink your White Claws in your van, and enjoy your white boys summer. But yeah, so anyways, you know, I do think though that the fact that, and the funny thing is, Jared, is when I was in grad school, and this was when I always used to be a little bit skeptical of these standardized tests, right? But we took a look at some old versions of standardized tests for children. Now, granted, these were ESL standardized tests for kids to like kind of test, like if you immigrate to the U.S. as a child, it kind of just tests where you are. And I tell you what, Jared, some of these questions, the way they were worded, we had a class of, 8 or 9 native speakers of English and then 5 or 6 non-native speakers, but I mean, their English was flawless. And we read these questions over and over again, and we couldn't figure out even what the damn question was trying to ask. So if you have adults who are graduate students in an English program and they can't figure out the meaning of some of these questions, how do you expect a 6-year-old with limited to maybe no, English experience really, let alone test-taking experience? And it's really problematic too, because then it leads us to the question of what are we really assessing here? What are we really trying to measure? And when you have questions that aren't clear, that aren't accurate, you won't be able to, in my opinion, you won't really be able to say, yes, this student displayed that they can or cannot do X, Y, or Z. And the other thing is too, with a lot of these standardized tests being multiple choice, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up, How do we know if they knew that or if they just guessed? And that's the other fascinating thing. I think the SAT is the one. I didn't take that one. I took the ACT because that's all we needed if we were going to study in Michigan. And I knew I wasn't going to go out of state because it was way too damn expensive. Not that Albion was cheap either, because it certainly wasn't. But
I was to say, like, you went to a private liberal arts school,
but at least I got a pretty decent
you can say
scholarship
it, Chad.
and stuff.
You were afraid to leave your parents. It's okay.
That's right. Terrified, Jared. Absolutely
I kind of was
terrified.
too. I think that's part of the reason why I stayed in Michigan.
But yeah. So, anyways, though, it's just so problematic. These for-profit institutions. Also, the way we test.
Well, there are a lot of biases to these tests. Now, obviously, I'll tell you why it's racist in a bit. But even just the like the financial aspect of it, like I remember when I was a kid, I took a pre-SAT which is literally just a standardized SAT test that prepares you for the
practice
real
one.
Yep. Yeah, that's what a PSAT stands for. I could have just said that. It stands for practice SAT, and it's essentially just a small, like a sort of a shorter version of the SAT that you can take beforehand, and then they'll grade you on that and tell you how you did. Obviously, you have to pay for it. It's a company. Then there's also my private school, and I say that not to brag by any means, but just to highlight the fact
Humble
that
brag.
just to highlight the fact that I'm certainly, trust me, if you guys knew anything about my high school, I'm certainly not bragging about going to that school.
I'm sure that'll make your parents happy to hear after spending all that money there.
Listen, they knew what they were getting into by taking it. I'm not saying the education itself was the problem, but there's problems with sending someone to an all-boys Catholic school, let's be honest. But one of the things that school offered that I guess wasn't a problem is classes like what do you call them, the SAT prep classes. That's what they call them. And you'd go to school like freaking, I'm trying to swear less, you go to school at like
6 a.m. on
6
a
in the
Saturday.
morning, and listen to some teacher that you don't like quiz you
Or
on
just some
vocab and
rando.
stuff.
We just had a rando teach us.
Yeah, that too. I mean, my school was kind of small, so you know most of the teachers. And then in addition to that, you'd have to buy that that SAT prep like textbook thing, that like sort of thick, like soft textbook kind of thing.
I probably have mine laying around somewhere around here.
You know what? If I was still in Louisiana, I could probably be like, hold on and go grab it.
Right?
Because the bookshelf, we have a giant bookshelf right next to where I was recording, so I probably have it too, or at least my sister does. Like we certainly have at least the like the GRE ones, because I know my sister took that more recently. But yeah, there's just just a lot of ways that really sort of separate and favor those with more money, or just those that are generally in privileged positions. One of them being, all these different prep classes you can take that cost a good amount of money. I mean,
Right.
a couple $100. It's not, none of this is cheap. And so just that in general. And then, the fact that you have to pay to take the test to begin with.
Right.
And I'm not going to say that, I don't remember what the price is, so I can't say whether it's like prohibitive or not, but it's a price in general is prohibitive to a certain extent.
I would say it's definitely prohibitive. I remember one of our guests that was on the pod a while back when I was still in the Czech Republic, Ravi.
It costs $50 actually. I have it here right in front of me.
Oh, nice. Ravi actually used to be a test prep tutor, because I know Ravi is incredibly intelligent, and I'm sure he, based on our conversations, and I think he even mentioned it, I think he scored, super high on a lot of those tests. It wouldn't surprise me if he's a good standardized test taker, just the way we've talked, and it seems like, the way he thinks. But anyways, it was interesting that he said he made a killing being a tutor and tutoring a lot of these wealthier families in New York.
Yeah, it's a bunch of rich kids.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree 100%. Now, I will say this, though. I mean, yes, if you're wealthy, you are certainly at a huge advantage, without a doubt. I will say this, though. A lot of public libraries do have tons and tons of prep books that you can check out for free.
That's true.
If you're struggling financially, there are still some ways. I'm not saying it's as good, but there are some ways. And I mean, most public libraries do have a lot of those materials that you can check out and take a look at. But the money is an issue for sure.
I don't fully remember whether this is true or not, but I really wonder how much those prep classes helped. Because it feels like it does feel like...
Well, they train you how to take the test. At least that's how mine was.
Right. So they're not even really training you on... I feel like I remember just learning a bunch of vocab,
Right. Right. Well, see, the thing is, though, too, Jared, is due to the fact that they have to kind of train you how to take the test, it already goes to show you that the tests aren't that accessible if you need to be kind of trained on knowing the kind of strategies and tricks and tips to kind of, get, a decent score on these tests.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm so confused about the prep classes, as far as actually preparing you for the not like strategically for the test, but intellectually for the test, where it's like none of the questions you get prepped with you're gonna see, or you'll see one, like that's gonna make a difference. Like I just don't understand what am I learning that's going to prepare me for this.
Like I told you, you're learning how to take the test, and you're practicing taking it usually I know we had timed practice tests. So you're also practicing taking a test with that
So you're also
time constraint.
They're also trying to teach you like the idea of time management. It's like,
Yes.
this is how long you'll have. So realize what that is and realize how far you went here and adjust properly. But it's not
Exactly.
but notice, you clearly you have some deficits in algebra. So brush up on your algebra. There's none of that.
Right.
There's no like, oh, it looks like you need to learn your chemical symbols a little better. Like it's that's not what they're
Right.
telling you.
Right.
And so it is just, I mean, I don't want to say a scam. I'm going to say a scam because it's like, this is how you take the test. This is what you need to have the intelligence to take the test. This is the tricks you need to be able to maneuver this test effectively.
Well, and as you mentioned, I mean, it also does act, unfortunately, as another hoop to jump through and a potential financial roadblock for some people. You know, I mean, $50 to $100 for some people, that could be a decision whether or not they can put gas in their car for the week or get groceries for the week or you know, whatever. So I mean, it's really crazy, and I think the fact that so many colleges do put I couldn't tell you exactly how much emphasis they put on the scores, but I hope we start to see. I've seen some universities now start to do away with that, where they don't have the GRE, for example, as a requirement to get into graduate school, because for the most part, the skills you're going to learn in graduate school, I don't really know. I mean, the GRE basically says, from my understanding of it is, do you have basic enough skills that you wouldn't flunk out of college, or not college, but flunk out of graduate school? Basically, do you have a decent enough vocabulary where you could read research articles and potentially be able to make heads or tails of them? I will say I scored a little bit higher on the math for the GRE than I thought I would. It was still below average, but it was higher than I expected for myself.
So is the GRE, is that just pass fail?
No, you get a score. I don't remember what my score is now.
What is it out of?
I don't remember either.
Okay.
It's in the hundreds, I believe.
You know what score makes no sense to me? You probably know.
What?
The
ACT, SAT?
ACT makes sense because it's just, 0 to 36 or whatever?
Yep.
SAT makes no sense to me. And it's changed over time. And so, like, I feel like, and I can say this now because, well, maybe I can't, and I'm honestly scared. I feel like...
Well, you already got Ticonderoga coming after us, Jared, so you might as well just spill the beans.
Now I'm trying to remember what my score was because...
on your SAT?
Yeah, because I feel like what I said was my score to my teacher, or not to my teacher, to like the admissions person of like the business program. I feel like what I said was my score was a good score if you use the old scoring process, but the score number had increased. I think, I don't know. I really don't know what my score was, but I don't understand what it means. You know, like I don't even understand what the score means. So it's like, how do I know? So okay, so the maximum score is 1,600. That's what I thought, but I thought they raised it, but I guess not.
I couldn't tell you.
According to 2019, I mean, this is as of 2019, so I guess they haven't. I thought they raised it. I don't know. See, I don't even know the scoring. Makes no sense to me. They also say that the standardized testing is racist. Racially biased, I should say. Now, some of that has to do with the financial aspect and the what do you call it? The ability to the accessibility of it, but then also some of it has to do with and this is maybe more socioeconomic, but I think it does come down to racially biased too. Is just some of the questions they say, and that some of the and I was trying so hard, and I'm serious, so hard to find examples of these questions, and I found like one or two.
I can give you one.
The one I found, can I give you mine first so I don't forget it? The one I found, because I don't have it written down, was, it was where they do like the here are two words, and now here are 4 examples of 2 words. What 2 words best fit, like our best fit?
Oh, those are so difficult.
And so the example was runner and marathon, and then there were a whole bunch of options, and I don't remember all the options, but the answer was oarsman and regatta. So
The hell
like
is a
an
regatta? I know what
an
an
oarsman
is.
is the person that is doing in a regatta is like a race for a boat race.
I see. Okay.
But like the only reason I know what a regatta is because I went to a private school that had a rowing team that went to regattas. I learned.
I would have got that question wrong.
But it's just, but they do say that these questions, like in like questions like this, they are specifically sort of focused at your quote unquote average American. But
Right.
but it's like this sort of like white suburban. There's a. What was the one you knew you could think of?
Yeah, so and this isn't from me. This is actually shout out to my old high school history teacher. We had to talk about bias in standardized testing in high school, actually, in my social studies class.
Look at that.
So shout out to Mr. Koenig. He's a great guy. I've seen him
Shout out
actually
Mr.
a little bit
Koenig.
around town. But anyways, what he said was, and he grew up. I don't remember if he grew up in Taylor, Michigan, or where he grew up, but he grew up somewhere where there was a pretty decent black population. And he said that one test question that he remembers from high school back in the day was it was an example about Thanksgiving food. Tune in. We had a Thanksgiving episode a while back, but all the Thanksgiving food examples, Jared, were like more white people types of
Yeah.
food they were giving.
Yeah.
And if you grew up in a black family, you might just not be familiar with, I forget the exact food. It might have been like peach cobbler or something. I don't remember what the food was, but it was like a food where, it was.
Oh, maybe it was sweet potato pie, or what do you guys like?
Pumpkin pie?
Thank you. Maybe
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
pumpkin pie. That's a big.
I
That's
think
a big
that
split.
might have been it. That might
Pumpkin
have been
pie
it.
is certainly white community, and sweet potato pie is the black community.
Right. So yeah, so it was interesting when he mentioned that, just because I had never really thought about it before. So he was challenging my 16-year-old sophomore brain into thinking about how.
And it's something that seems so simple, where it's like, well, it's not that these black people don't understand Thanksgiving. It's
Right.
just like,
Well, let's
it's
take
like we don't
this-
eat that at Thanksgiving.
Let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit further, Jared. So now, if we want to talk about not understanding the test language, as a language teacher, I also can't. I can't not mention, or I can't avoid not mentioning.
You
sorry
must
for all
mention.
the double negatives here. Think about students where English isn't their first language, or students
must
who
be a nightmare.
And the funny thing is too, is a lot of these tests, you could have certain sections, I think you could probably translate them, but because these are run by private companies, they might not want to pay somebody to do that. And these tests just aren't always fully accessible. So, if you are administering these standardized tests to an English language learner, and depending on their proficiency of English, if they don't have a great command of the language just yet, they're not going to do well on the test, most likely, unless they just randomly circle the correct answer. And so what that means, though, is that these poor children get terrible test scores, which can hurt. It can hurt kind of their confidence as a student. It can, just make them feel like they're not smart, they're not a good test taker, what have you. And you're already kind of putting these students in a negative position,
Yeah, for sure. But the people that use this test as a decider would be like, well, this person's not prepared, because they can't, But
Right.
it's like,
to some degree, I mean, yes, you do need to have a certain level.
I'm not saying I agree with that, by the way.
Right.
I'm just saying that that's what they would say.
Right. Well, and I will say that to some extent, I mean, your English needs to be good enough so you can actually, take classes and participate and actually learn, However, but I don't see these companies really trying to bridge the gap. And based on at least what we had discussed quite a bit when I was in grad school a few years back, it seemed like there were still a lot of issues and problems with that. Here's another big problem with standardized testing as well, Jared, is that these types of tests are not, they're not great in terms of if you're a student who's very creative. That's how some people really thrive when it comes to their intellect. They're very creative. Maybe they can draw something, or they can create an amazing story, or they can write music or write a play or what have you. So then the question is, well, how do we assess these types of students?
What is intelligence really?
Yeah, that's a good question.
we are letting these people tell us what it means to be intelligent, and it has no representation to the real world, you know. And so
Another big issue with standardized testing as well is that it paints such a broad brush that I don't think we're really like if someone were to show me their test scores, I don't really know if I were to admit them to like a college or a university, right? I just don't know how that would really give me a good picture of what this person is like as a student. You know, I would rather actually see some writing samples. I would like to see, obviously, recommendation letters, I think, make a little bit more sense.
what about just straight up grades?
Also, yeah. Well, yeah. Also, I
Do
was
you
going to
think
get there
that's
as
better?
well.
Do you think that's better than standardized tests?
Well, that's also tricky. Grades can be tricky because, for example, I had a classmate of mine who didn't apply himself in school. He was one of those types of people where he was just so damn smart
He was
that he was
bored.
just bored. So he didn't care. So it was so funny. I remember him and I were both put in the quote unquote slow math class, right, in 7th and 8th grade. And I remember sitting by him and I remember struggling trying to understand these concepts and get decent grades. He would sleep through class, take the test, get like a 90 to a 95 on the test.
I hate those people.
And then that was it. So I think I look at it this way. You could use a standardized test score as one of many pieces to put together a portfolio for applying somewhere. However, how much you decide to give that standardized test score a value is the big question here. Because, you know, I had a classmate who I think he got a 34 on the ACT, and a 36 is the highest.
Jesus.
He could have gone almost anywhere, but because his GPA was like a 2.0, there were a lot of places that weren't willing to take him. And you know, I had a pretty decent GPA in high school, but I didn't have the highest standardized test scores. So, you know, I was able to get in and get a scholarship at Albion because of, I think, my GPA. You know, if it was certainly based on test scores, your boy probably would have been going to community college the first 2 years.
Yeah. I think I was kind of in the same boat as you. My standardized test scores were pretty uninspiring, but I had a pretty good GPA.
Right. You know what the biggest issue that I see, though, Jared, with standardized tests and with grades is that it totally changes the way we teach and the way students learn. So, for example, if we could wake up tomorrow and there were no more grades and no more standardized testing, I understand this is an extremely radical viewpoint here, but let me just use this as an example. So we wake up tomorrow, no more standardized tests, no more grades. I think students would, and this is obviously a very idealistic view here, but I think a lot of students would actually put more emphasis and have a better understanding of why they're learning what they're learning instead of just learning to pass a test or get a specific grade. And I heard this with so many faculty I met with this last semester at my job. You know, I heard a lot of faculty complaining about all the students really care about is their grades. You know, and the whole point, especially of college, is to learn the necessary skills so when you graduate, you can be a productive member in whatever field or workforce you enter. And so when your focus is purely on your grades and getting certain grades, after you graduate, you know, let's take engineering, for example, right? Say you cheat on all your engineering exams so you can get your 4.0. You graduate, you get hired by this really solid, let's say Tesla hires you, you're making the big bucks, you move out to Texas, and then they realize, oh, you do not actually have the necessary practical knowledge to actually apply what you learned in graduate school or your bachelor's, and you're not going to be a good fit for this job. So I think we're actually doing students kind of a disservice because when you're so focused on grades and tests, you're not really focused on what are the skills that I'm actually learning. And that's what I really started to realize, Jared, especially during this current job of mine, is how much in grad school really helped me. And I didn't realize it because I was also so damn focused on my grades.
Sure. I mean, you don't know any better.
Right.
That's the end all be all is the grades.
Right, which is really, I think we do students a giant disservice. I always wonder too, how many other Picassos or Mozarts or Nikolai Teslas or these great minds are out there in these children, and then the way our education system is, we just beat the creativity out of them, we indoctrinate the shit out of them, and then they end up being a shell of what they once were. There was I think the quote from Picasso was something like, every child is an artist. The challenge is keeping that artist creativity, mentality, whatever, until as you age as an adult. And I think schools do a good job of beating that out of us.
We must think of the children. I agree. What about the children?
Exactly. Well, and the thing with the children as well, Jared, is the standardized tests are incredibly stressful, incredibly anxiety-inducing, I would say.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
And the other negative thing about standardized tests with public schools in the U.S., maybe some of our listeners abroad don't know this, but in the U.S., a lot of funding is based on standardized test scores. So once again, we're coming kind of full circle here because the teachers then begin teaching more content about the tests so the students can do well so they can keep their jobs. So It's kind of this never-ending cycle of, and these standardized tests, as we've mentioned, they are written by for-profit corporations, private businesses, and a lot of times these tests are not
industry.
always...
Don't forget the pencil industry.
That's true too. A lot of these
pencil.
tests, though, it's not like these tests are written by people who were teachers or who are in education. I'm pretty sure almost anybody with an English degree, now I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure almost anybody who gets a degree in English, you could definitely be a content test writer for Pearson, which is one of the big companies, because I've actually gotten job offers sent to me because of my TESOL degree, to be like basically you're called an item writer. So you just write test questions. But the funny thing is, Jared, if you think about it, how can I know what types of test questions to write for an ESL test when English is my native language? I mean, I could certainly do it, but the problem is I think when you have certain people write test questions, are these really the best people to be writing these?
Yeah, probably not. Not.
Right. What else here? I did want to mention, though, some strategies or some solutions outside of standardized testing. So let me mention a couple of those. So number one, Jared, there is this this really popular way of assessing students now in foreign languages called can-do statements. And they're exactly kind of like what they sound like. So students will actually basically kind of grade themselves. So for example, if you were in my German class, Jared, say you're in my German 101 class, my beginning German class, I would have maybe the first week of can-do statements would be like, I can introduce myself using simple present in German, right? So you could say, ich heiße Jared, ich bin 28 Jahre alt. You're 28, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So you would like go and check off those can-do statements. And then with a can-do statement, if you check those off, then the way I can make sure that you're grading yourself accurately is then we can do some activities where you would have to do that, right? So you might do a partner interview with a classmate, and you would introduce yourself, and I would walk around the class and just monitor and make sure.
That sounds great, but that sounds like way more work than just handing out a standardized test.
Well, but I think that could be that's a great point, Jared. I think that's another reason why we still see so many tests. And I'll tell you what, I almost didn't sign my teaching contract this semester because they basically forced me to give my students an oral midterm exam. And in my opinion, I think my students could show their speaking skills in other ways than just like a one-on-one interview with me. I would have rather had them do some type of project or presentation, but that's not traditional enough for my colleagues in China to appreciate. So so unfortunately, I have to do some of these tests.
No one cares about your new age techniques, Chad.
Exactly.
Just give them a test.
Exactly. But can-do statements are a really big one, especially in language learning right now. Then there's also this the other thing that I really like is it's called gamification. And gamification is basically where you turn your class, and especially with online classes, I think it lends itself well to this. I mean, we are still in a pandemic, people. I know it's hard to believe, and I know people are slowly getting their vaccines, which is great. But we're still in this pandemic, and so but gamification, Jared, basically means instead of like giving each student the same assignment, what you do is you give your students different options of assignments, and then they kind of collect points, or if you're a gamer, it would be called XP, right? Experience points, basically, as they go throughout the semester, which I think that's a super cool way to...
I could get down with that.
Yeah, to grade your students. You put your students a bit more in the driver's seat of their own education because they can pick and choose which activities they do and they don't do. Now, the difficulty I can tell you on the teacher side for that is just making sure you have enough activities that students are still demonstrating the correct skills they need to demonstrate. So, for example, if one of the skills you wanted your students to demonstrate is maybe distilling a lot of important information and presenting it in a very clear fashion, what you could do is you could offer them, if you have students who want to write a paper, they could write a paper. Your students could record a podcast. Your students could make a commercial or a video. Your students could, let's see here, I'm trying to think of some other ideas. A podcast, videos, a paper. I mean, the sky is kind of the limit. Yeah, but see, I love this idea of, gamification of your class. That's super cool. The other idea here is also from an academic named Jesse Stommel, and it's called ungrading. And basically, ungrading is kind of like what it sounds. So let me just kind of read this. So across education, this is from Jesse Stommel's website, How to Ungrade. So here we go, Jared. Across education, we've normalized absurd levels of grading, test taking, and standardized assessment. I would agree with that. And yet letter grades are actually a relatively recent phenomenon. They weren't widely used until the 1940s. In Teaching More by Grading Less, Jeffrey Shinsky and Kimberly Tanner cite the first official record of a grading system from Yale in 1785. The A through F system appears to have emerged in 1898, with the E not disappearing until the 1930s. The 100-point or percentage scale became common in the early 1900s. According to Shinsky and Tanner, even by 1971, only 67% of primary and secondary schools in the U.S. were actually using letter grades. The desire for uniformity across institutions was the primary motivator for the spread of these systems, which on the one hand I do understand, because if you want to be able to compare your students with other students and students across the nation, you can use these kind of more uniform grading scales. But at the same time, it's really difficult because, when we talk about all these standardized testing, is it fair? Is it efficient? Does it really measure what it says it's going to measure? And these are all questions that, it's really hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me just end here with a couple last kind of things on ungrading. So here are a couple good questions to anybody out there who's just curious about this, especially if you're a teacher. So question number 1 would be, why do we grade? How does it feel to be graded? And what do we want grading to do or not to do in our classes for students and for teachers? Also, what do letter grades mean? So I remember talking to a colleague of mine, and back in the day, they work in STEM fields. And they said back in the day, you were happy when you got a C in your STEM classes because C was the average. Nowadays, like our generation, we do have the phrase or saying C's get degrees. However,
I've never heard that before.
You've never heard that before, really? Okay.
No.
You're learning all sorts of new stuff today, Jared.
Yeah. Yeah.
But see, that's my point, though, Jared, is that our generation, I think, we are so grade focused, grade motivated, that like C's are almost like a D or an E or an F now for a lot of people, and a C is a totally acceptable grade.
Yeah. No, I mean, if I certainly lived in a house where if I got Like a C is kind of the lowest I could go without there being any serious problems, you know.
Right. Same here.
That was certainly the lowest before we had a long conversations. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true. But it's like, but no one wants to be average, bro. Nobody likes that. That's
yeah. But the sad
average people
truth is, a
don't
lot
succeed.
of the majority of us are average. That's the sad truth of the matter.
Yeah, but you can't just accept that. You can't just be like, yeah, you're right, I'm average, so let me just take this C. You know, you have to fight to move out of that average spot, I would say.
I like that. Jared. So a few more questions that are related to ungrading. So as I mentioned, what do these letter grades mean? Do they have any intrinsic meaning, or is their value purely extrinsic? Does assessment mean differently when it is formative rather than summative? And basically, Jared, I'm sorry for all the academic mumbo jumbo and jargon right now, but let me try to, put this more into common language here. Formative assessment, Jared, refers to very regular kind of low stakes grades. So doing like a short pop quiz, doing a little, like you could even do a quick discussion. You could do, just answer a few basic questions. Whereas summative assessment, this would be like a big final exam or a big midterm. And those obviously generally have more anxiety associated with them. They're generally like way higher stakes, right? So you're taking this test that might, like my students in China, they take what they call the Gaokao, which is the entrance exam, and that basically will make or break your future. Like if you fuck up on that test, like good luck. Sorry, I think I just used our second F-bomb today. It was worth it though. Also though, Jared, the bigger question, we've been talking about testing and everything, but we have to also mention that this falls under the umbrella of education, right? And the whole point of education is to learn at the end of the day. It's not to, I guess depends on your life goals, I guess. But for me, as someone who I consider myself a lifelong learner, that's the goal. Gain more skills, gain more knowledge. And so the question then becomes, how does feedback, which I think is much more valuable than giving a grade, how does feedback actually relate to grades? And to what extent should teachers be readers of student work as opposed to evaluators? So, a lot of these standardized tests, Jared, there's no feedback. You fill in all these bubbles for hours, you get your score, and that's it. So that's just terrible.
Yeah, I don't think anyone considers standardized testing like learning, though. No one is looking at it that way ever.
Right. Well, no, definitely not. If you did, you were
doing
fool.
this to make sure everyone's learn. And no, it's just to get people into college or grad school or whatever.
I like the way you put it, though, Jared. It's a scam. I think at the end of the day, a lot of these, it's a scam.
Yeah, for sure.
And the shame is some countries are so. There's so many stakeholders now with these big standardized tests. I can't ever see a way that they'll be able to get out of it.
No, and I mean, the standardized test companies, because they're companies, they're going to do everything in their power to keep making money. So it's not like they're going to be like, you're right, there's some bias. We'll take this back and go to the drawing board.
Right.
There's no benefit to that.
Just like how Ticonderoga is not going to be like, you know what, it is bad that we're chopping down all these trees. We should be using.
They make a great pencil. I'm not going to lie.
They do. All right, Jared, let me leave us today with this episode with this final question here.
You have to stop saying that. You say one last thing, final thing, so many times. You said one last thing like 3 times.
Anyways, last question. And I want all of our listeners to think about this. What would actually happen and what would education look like if we didn't grade or if there wasn't as much emphasis on grading? What would be the benefits? How would this change issues for students, whether this be financially, mentally, physically, and how would colleges, universities, and other institutions be forced to rethink how they assess and evaluate their students? So those are the questions I will leave us with today, because I think there's some good questions to think about. I couldn't tell you the answer, but I do think it's definitely worth considering and thinking about. But at the end of the day, Jared, I think we would both agree standardized tests are kind of a scam and a shill. And it'd be nice if we didn't always put so much emphasis on them. Well, great. Well, let us know what your thoughts are on standardized tests at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. You can slide into those DMs on Twitter, untranslatable1, the number 1. Check us out on Instagram and YouTube, Untranslatable Podcast. And please 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher, and let us know how we can make this podcast better for you. So, as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, dziękujemy, muchas gracias, shisha, and do svidania. Speaking of grading, I have a little bit of grading to do for my classes this weekend.
Oh, you have a lot of grading to do? I didn't know you gave out like assignments like that.
Well, so the assignments I do, they're like it's a weekly packet. So it's technically 4 activities per week. 2 are discussion activities. One's an idiom activity and one's a vocabulary activity. And then this first round of packets, we're just going to give them like a credit, no credit. So if you did it, you get full credit. Then the next time, though, we will be looking more closely. When I say we, it's my teaching assistants and I. We will be looking more closely at like making sure they're using the correct language. Also checking to make sure they're actually using the appropriate vocabulary words in their discussions and everything. But yeah, so I will tell you this, Jared, grading is probably my least favorite thing about teaching.
Yeah, I can imagine. It seems like it would be pretty monotonous.
It's just kind of busy work. If I could, Jared, if I could just give credit, no credit on everything, and then just be able to spend more time on giving my students actually good feedback, I think that would be so much more worthwhile.
Yeah, spoken like a true lazy person. No, I'm kidding.